Okay, Ola, so thank you very much again for supporting me and trying to disseminate our research to the academic community and other stakeholders interested in intellectual activism, racial equality, and the concept of non-cooperative spaces developed by my colleague Rashedur Chowdhury.
Yeah, so this was a very interesting paper, and I just want to get more of a sense of it. What's your paper exactly about?
Let me start by introducing the concept of intersectionality. Um, in general, Black men or women, regardless of their gender, and LGBTQ individuals face discrimination. However, Black women are located in society as the least valued members, the least important people in society. Traditionally, there's research to support these claims. If you look into the work of Kimberly Crenshaw and other Black female scholars who have looked at social justice, racial equality, they would provide evidence to support these claims. So this means that because of the location of the Black woman within society, she's also exposed to extreme marginalization and extreme forms of violence, domestic violence, and work-related violence. This is a result of the intersecting dimensions of gender, race, and in some cases, even their ability. In this case, it can also be to do with things like our accents. So even if these Black women tend to be marginalized, some of the particular Black intellectuals, Black female scholars, they do speak out. They do speak out against racism, they do speak out against violence, and we call that speaking out intellectually. We call it intellectual activism, whereby these Black scholars are crafting their ideas, are criticizing society with the goal to attain positive transformation or achieve social justice. This is a concept developed by Patricia Hill Collins. However, when Black scholars, when Black female scholars speak out or engage in intellectual activism, they are doing so in a space that we consider to be non-cooperative. It's a non-cooperative space in the sense that it is designed by hegemonic actors to give the impression that they are supportive to victims of racism, to victims of racial or social injustice, and to encourage these individuals to speak out. But in reality, those spaces are quite dangerous for the individuals when they speak out. In reality, nothing changes, even if those individuals do indeed speak out. So we argue here that in many cases, Black scholars, Black female scholars struggle a lot because they are speaking out in non-cooperative spaces. And we try to demonstrate that through a case analysis of someone that we call Alice. So here, let me state three important points about Alice. Alice is deeply committed to research on her continent of Africa. Alice is also struggling to publish research on Africa or research on Black people by Black people. But what Alice has done is team up with a colleague and look into the reasons why there is that struggle. And remarkably, if not ironically, that research provides Alice with the so-called 15 minutes of fame. Alice her research gets published in a top journal, and Alice and her colleague, they win a prestigious award. But then there's disruption. This disruption is linked to a third point that I'm going to discuss. Alice lives in a shared apartment with a white woman from another EU country. Let's call the woman Lena. So Lena moved into the apartment to replace Alice's friend who left during the COVID pandemic. And this is where things become more complicated as soon as Lena moves on. Lena regularly makes comments about how people from shitty countries are lucky to make it in this EU country where Alice is based and practicing, or where she's based and working and trying to assume the role of an intellectual activist. And so Lena makes fun of how these people from shitty countries make it in this EU country, and how she, Lena, has never or had never talked to any Black person before coming to this country. Lena jokes about how the blue chip organization that she works for has donated to Black Lives Matter just to keep stakeholders happy. So Lena starts putting or setting some rules for Alice. Alice is no longer permitted to access the shared kitchen or use the private shower after 10:30 p.m. We see white power in operation here as Lena sets rules and confines Alice's movements within her given space. So one day in the last quarter of 2020, Alice decides to go to the kitchen. She walks to the kitchen around 10 p.m. to make a cup of tea and returns to her room. Then she sees Lena standing in front of the door, blocking the entrance. Lena turns towards Alice, shoulder bumps Alice, slaps Alice, shoves Alice into her room, and Alice is frozen. She is shocked. It takes it a while to register that she's being physically assaulted intentionally. She does not, however, hit back Lena. After the assault, Alice decides to call the police. It takes 2 phone calls for the police to appear. They decide to come back the next day and take a statement. Alice follows up. She calls them again multiple times. Then they eventually show up, take a statement, and they leave. Nothing else happens after that. So Alice maintains contact with the police. She frequently calls them, following up on the investigation, and she's told that it will take at least half a year to investigate the case. Besides, there's no physical evidence or no physical damage caused to Alice, so the case is considered minor. All this is happening in the middle of a pandemic as well as a teaching period. Alice is on a contract. She's working on a temporary contract, and she decides that the only thing she has to do is try and keep her job and find a safe place. She contacts the landlord asking for safe accommodation, but the landlord refuses to take any action without a police report. The police, however, does not issue any report because it has not done its investigations yet. So Alice decides to move to a neighboring EU country where she continues working from cheap hotel rooms over a 3-month period. But she is stumbling a bit. She temporarily withdraws from all public life, but continues delivering on her teaching job. She jokingly tells the students about the pandemic and adaptation, making reference to her residence in cheap hotel rooms, where the students can see the hotel rooms where, and anyhow, they can see the walls. So while this is happening, Alice's courage, her courage starts to fade. Her courage as an aspirant intellectual activist starts fading away, and she suspends her intellectual activism from all social media. Alice temporarily hides. Then we see how she engages in a dialogue with herself. She struggles with the silence, and she engages in some kind of dialogue with herself over the physical assault. We hear her asking questions about who she is, what she has learned from other Black female scholars, and why she needs to speak out. She writes her thoughts down until eventually she gains enough courage to compile a story about her experiences and decides to share that story with the broad academic community.
What is it that she wants to achieve from sharing her story?
She sees this story as a courageous act. Alice is still embedded within the context where this happened. She's still part of that story. And she's looking here at 3 non-cooperative spaces that are operating in parallel and invisibly colluding to generate and sustain racism faced by individuals like Alice and many others. So first, there is the legal system or the police. And then second, there is the housing system, which does not hold Lena accountable for her behavior. Then there's also the academic system, which traditionally marginalizes individuals like Alice and often ignores issues of racial equality in its curricula. Now, imagine if, well, you can think perhaps of the most powerful actors within business schools, and we can think perhaps about the landlords, the police officers, and the managers of these blue chip companies. Imagine if they would come together, work together, and create a solution for tackling racial inequality. We would probably have far less incidences as what happens to Alice. So the aim here is to highlight how separate spaces collude invisibly to amplify or intensify racist experiences that are endured by individuals such as Alice, and then think about potential solutions, cross-sectoral solutions for tackling racial inequality.